What's up, guys? Welcome to Weigel Friends English, and today we're talking about double contractions.
So let's get to it. So a lot of you already know about contractions, but a lot of times we colloquially will turn these contractions into double contractions by adding another contraction on the end of an already contracted
Contraction. These are terrible to learn from an ESL standpoint, but have no fear, there are a few that are pretty common regardless of the region that you're in America, though I will say that there are special regional contractions just about every corner of America.
Disclaimer here before we get to them, you should not use these in writing. These are spoken contractions that are very common when we smush words together to make English more natural sounding. Even though we're going to write some of them on the screen for you guys so you can see them, do not write them.
Wouldn't have, shouldn't have, couldn't have. These are the first ones and probably the most popular. You've honestly heard these plenty of times before, but for the sake of completion, we must put them in this video.
Would not have, should not have, could not have. These are all modal negatives to say something that you wish wouldn't have happened.
If I wouldn't have left the gate open, the horses wouldn't have gotten out.
You shouldn't have left the gate open.
I couldn't have done better at letting the horses out. I don't know. We use these all the time. I couldn't have done any better. Usually this is something that we do retrospectively, where we're thinking back to something that we wish wouldn't have happened, or that it really shouldn't have happened, or we couldn't have done anything different than what the outcome currently is. This is something that you will hear often in American English, and now that we've told you and refreshed your memory on it, you're probably going to hear it a lot.
This is really essential for advice giving. The idea of giving advice, like you said, retrospectively in the past tense to say, hey, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, you really shouldn't have done that. In some regions in America, particularly in the Northeast, some people will say something like, mustn't have. You must not have done that. Or he must not have been there. He mustn't have done that. He mustn't have been there. This is not near as common in American English, I will say. Far more common in British English, but it does exist to a point where we do hear it occasionally, so I definitely want to add it to this list.
Another one that's far more common is hadn't have.
Had not have done that. If he hadn't have done that, we would have been here already.
So this is more of like a conditional.
Interestingly, where we live in the American South, people really like this one, so they will use it even though it would be technically by grammar wrong to use had not have happened, hadn't have happened. Some people will use that even when you don't need to have the have in there, but they really like the sound of it, so it's really funny that this one's kind of just thrown around a lot more. Where we live, this is really common.
Another one that's really common is who'd have.
Ooh, who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought we would have put that one on the list?
Who would have is what this contraction is made of, but who'd have thought? Or some people say to joke around like you do all the time.
Who'd have thunk?
Not proper grammar at all. Another one here is which'll have, which Josh has particular trouble saying when he's not like speaking normally.
I do. So because this one's difficult for me to say, normally I just don't say it, but it is actually surprisingly common.
Yeah, which will have. Usually we say this when we're talking about how something's going to have some consequences. It's usually treated like a relative clause, which will have. So usually you have some kind of decision, like he chose to go with red, which will have brighter shine while driving around town. They opted to go with the premium option, which will have a longer shelf life for them in the future.
The next one is we'd have. Like, we'd have been there if you'd have told us.
We'd have been there already if you drive faster. So we'd have is we would have.
This is a really, really common one, especially in our area. Basically, you're blaming somebody else. This is some complex grammar. We would have been there if not for blank.
There's several pronouns to this one. So you have they'd have, we'd have, it'd have, he'd have, she'd have, all of these. It's all would have. And so we'll smash them together like they'd have been millionaires by now if their real estate business hadn't crashed in 2008.
Or she'd have been able to retire if her company didn't fire her beforehand. So the next one is more of a Southern contraction, which we have a whole video about Southern contractions, but a double contraction that we often say here in the South. It looks really weird, sounds really weird. It's y'all.
Do you all?
Y'all.
Y'all is usually something we use at the beginning. Like, do y'all want this? Do y'all plan on coming out tonight? Do y'all care if I come now? Things like this. We use it all the time.
Do y'all know English was this ridiculous?
There you go. Here's another one that's quite ridiculous is, what'd you think? What'd you do today?
What'd y'all do? What'd y'all think?
What'd y'all want?
So it's what do y'all whatever.
Or it could be, what do you? What'd ya?
What'd you think of the movie?
There you go, guys. There's a few double contractions that you guys need to understand to be able to hear them and recognize them when they're said, or to be able to use them yourself. And we do reduce English, but also know that we don't always reduce everything. These are the ones that we tend to reduce all the time. But there's sometimes, like there's a final word in a question clause or in a question sentence that we will not contract. We leave it very clear. But also keep in mind regional differences. You have places in the Northeast, for example, where they cut their words really, really short, like your Boston accent, your New York accents. There's also a range of accents in those places. The American South, we're really well known for the Southern drawl. We are well known for taking off the G and everything with ing and things of this nature. And y'all, we'll come out with a video here shortly specifically dedicated to some contractions in the Southern accent, just for fun.
So meanwhile, try pronouncing these contractions because they can be difficult to pronounce, and try to keep an ear out on whether or not you can spot these in videos or in audios that you see this week.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.